On 12 News at 4, we are all about bringing you solutions and empowering you to better your lives. Every day, we bring some of the Valley's most experienced professionals to discuss trending topics on health, ways to save money and improve your financial life, the law, relationships. We even have an expert on pets. And it's not just us asking the questions, we give you, the viewer, the opportunity to weigh in and ask questions too. Now, we're putting all these segments together in one place for you. This is Ask the Expert. Well, now we are diving into red light therapy on this Feel Good Friday. And last week, if you'll remember, we talked about this trending topic and we got so many questions from our viewers that we wanted to hit it again. From face masks to lamps, belts to boots, it's touted to work wonders. But what are the pros and cons of red light therapy? And how do you know which device is best for you? And what about insurance? Is it covered? We're going to answer all of it right now. Joining me is Dr. Sonal Harder from Dignity Health Medical Group. All right, Sonal, let's establish the basics. What are some of the benefits?
Okay, so the benefits are it's anti-inflammatory. It also helps with treatments of acne, certain types of skin cancers, psoriasis, eczema, wrinkle treatment, so kind of anti-aging sort of treatments. And basically, it helps us produce more collagen. Collagen is that ingredient we need for elasticity and better skin and reduction of wrinkles. And hair follicles. It also helps with hair growth.
I know. I was so surprised to hear that. Okay, so I want to go over the pros and cons, starting with what would they be if you get it in the doctor's office?
Okay, so the key thing for red light therapy is the wavelength and intensity. It has, in order for this to be effective, you have to have certain amount of wavelength in the device and intensity. In a doctor's office, that is better controlled. We also know that most studies that have shown effective treatments actually come from doctors' treatments, not home devices. So those are some of the pros. You can also add other treatments under your dermatologist's guidance along with red light therapy in an office-based treatment, right?
Okay.
Cons are obviously can be expensive.
Yeah.
This is not one treatment and done.
Right.
This is like something that you have to actually consistently keep up with to get those benefits. So it can be expensive to go to a doctor's office. It's a hassle factor. I don't think I can go once every 2 weeks to a dermatology office. So that can be a little bit of a hassle factor.
Yeah.
So I think expensive, frequency of how many times you have to go.
Right. Okay, so what about, you see these products all over the place.
Absolutely.
What about doing it at home? What should we know? Pros and cons.
So there is a range, and this is what we want our viewers to know. There are some effective home devices, and this is what we look for home devices. Wavelength and the power intensity of these devices matters.
Okay.
So wavelength of about 633 nanometers for red light and 830 nanometers for infrared light are considered to be effective based on studies.
Okay.
So when you're buying a device, make sure you're looking at the wavelength. If you don't have that information, I suggest actually emailing the company about that information.
Oh.
Number two is intensity. And it is basically those two things matter because those actually determine how effective your home treatments are.
Right.
So when it comes to power and intensity, it is about 40 milliwatts of, I think, squares. There's a unit, but
Okay.
40 is the number you want to remember.
Got it.
When it comes to power. Those two numbers need to be on this device for your home device to be effective.
Okay.
Now, the benefit of home device is you can do it at home. Most devices are about 15 to 30 minutes each session. You can do it 3 to 4 times a week or once or twice a week. And it's at the comfort of your house.
Yeah, so
Right.
easy. Pop it on like in the mornings or at
Right.
night, whenever you want.
And the cons are, if it's not the wavelength that we talked about or intensity, then it may not be as effective as an office-based treatment.
Okay.
So that's probably, one of the cons I can think of.
Yeah. Now, I've looked at some of these masks, Sonal. They can range up to $500. I mean, it is
Absolutely.
so expensive. So does insurance, can they cover it? Or?
Insurance does not, unfortunately, cover the treatments. Now, if it comes to treatment of psoriasis or some certain type of skin conditions, I recommend my patients actually checking with their insurance companies.
Okay.
Because for certain skin conditions, there is a possibility for coverage, but not for cosmetic treatments.
Oh, I see. Would it help if you got a doctor's written note? to refer or recommend that, oh, this really helps my patient. I don't know, maybe that would help with the insurance coverage.
As a primary care doctor, I will tell you, not all letters actually work, but I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
If your doctor can document that it's a skin condition that would benefit, there's a chance. But that's something with every insurance, things are different. So
yeah, nothing to lose, right?
Yes,
Why not try
exactly.
it? Great stuff, Sonal. Thank you. So now to Ask the Expert, here to answer your questions live on the air about red light therapy is Dr. Sonal Harder. Okay, Jamie in Phoenix was kind enough to send a photo and a question. So she wants to know, how long is it safe to wear the mask, and is it dangerous to wear it too long? That is a good question.
So Jamie, I would stick to the box instructions because this all depends on, again, the wavelength of the device, also the intensity and the power of the device. So typically it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and I would stick to those because any longer could give you side effects. So I would avoid going any above the instructions.
And sometimes it's an automatic shutoff, isn't it?
So, exactly. And that's actually big error proof, so that when you have something at home, you're not going above that time duration.
Over it. Okay. Ella from Chandler says, I've seen red light therapy offered at a tanning salon. Is this safe?
That's a great question. In general, red light therapy is safe and does not have a ton of side effects. Now, here's what I want Ella to know is if she has any conditions that she should not be undergoing red light therapy, for example, photosensitivity or a history of lupus or medications like doxycycline, tetracycline, or migraines, epilepsy, these are things, if you have any of those, you should not be getting any red light therapy. But in general, they are safe.
Okay, good to know. Terry says, are there other forms of light color therapy that are similar?
Oh, what a great question. So infrared light is, again, a deeper wavelength compared to red light. Also something that we use for joint pain or inflammation in your muscles to relieve muscle soreness. Some of these devices come in with red and infrared therapy. So they are in the same device. Now, green is being researched. Green light is also touted to be something that is actually good for anti-aging wrinkle therapy, but we are still researching that. We don't have enough data. Blue light is actually used for treatment of acne. But the thing about blue light is it can cause hyperpigmentation in certain skin colors, like darker skin color like mine. There is a tendency to cause hyperpigmentation. So I often say with blue light, talk to a dermatologist before you use that.
Oh, that was very interesting. Okay, Gail from Surprise says, can RLT or red light therapy help pain like with my arthritis?
Yes, the infrared light actually penetrates beyond skin into your muscles and in your joint. And so it's touted to reduce inflammation in your joint. So it can actually help with arthritis.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Anaya says, which face mask do you recommend buying that has the best results? $1 million question, right?
It is. Okay, so this is how I pick the best mask. Well, number one, what is it that you're more comfortable, hand device or a facial mask? So that's one. Is it FDA approved? Number three, what is the wavelength? That is something that you have to actually pay attention to. Not all red light devices are effective. So a wavelength of about 633 nanometers or 830 nanometers is effective for red light and infrared light therapy.
Got it.
Also, intensity about 40 is what you're looking for. So those two numbers, if you don't have it on the device, email the manufacturer to get that information before you invest in those devices.
Okay. Can I be too personal and ask?
Yes.
Do you use one?
I do. I just invested in one a few months ago.
Okay. Can I ask which one?
Yes. It's Omnilux, and it's not, I'm not sponsored. It's not gifted. I bought
We're just asking because we're nosy.
Yes. No, and I think it's good to know. I just bought it based on those parameters. I looked at what the wavelengths were, intensity, and this is a long-term investment. It's a little bit on the pricier side, but if you're looking at doing this 3 to 4 times a week for years to come, invest in a good one that actually is going to be effective.
Right, and a whole lot cheaper than getting it at the clinic.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Sonal, thank you, and thanks for your honesty. We appreciate it. On this Money Saving Monday, let's talk travel. This year, the number of passengers flying will reach 4.7 billion. That's 200 million more passengers than pre-pandemic levels back in 2019, according to the International Air Transport Association. So What else has changed? The average price of a round-trip ticket. It's increased 29%, which is roughly 86 more bucks than we were paying in 2021. So what's behind the increase? Experts say greater demand, higher fuel prices, and airline capacity. So what can we do to save money when booking flights? Let's ask the expert. Joining me now is travel agent Susan Green of Susan's Travel Services. All right, you've got 7 great tips, so let's launch right into it, starting with know your airline classes.
Yeah, so that's a big one that we find runs into mistake. Typically, there is economy and business or first, but there's this new class that came out that's called basic economy, and people got to be very careful about that. There's no changes, no seat assignment, so you and I can go on a trip and you'll be sitting at the front, I'll be sitting at the back, and there's no baggage that you can bring with you, and no cancellation. Now with all of the airlines allowing us to cancel, that's something that you really want to know when you're booking a discounted ticket.
Right.
So make sure you're at economy. We always recommend economy or higher.
Okay, or if you're really sure that you're going to stick with that one, then maybe
Yeah,
do
I'm
basic
flying
economy.
today and I can go and I'm going to LA. I
Exactly.
can be
No
on basic
wiggle room.
economy.
Yeah.
But there's no wiggle room. And remember, you don't get that bag. Right? So you're going to pay for that.
extra.
So that's going to be another $40, $50. Add that to the cost.
Yeah, okay, good point. No discount airlines is your next one.
Yeah, so this is a big thing. This happened today. There's an airline, I won't say the name of it. These people are like, we want to fly them. They don't charge us for bags. So we look at these airlines that we call discount airlines. That flight for the family of 4 was $800 more than if I put them on a regular airline. And I said, you know, that's a lot of bags for you to go to Hawaii.
Wow.
So the discount airline, there's a couple things you need to know. Number one, they don't talk to other airlines. And what does that mean? So you're flying and that airline either has mechanical errors or that flight gets canceled. That means they aren't going to put you on another airline to go home. You're going to be waiting till that airline gets you another flight. Well, that could be the next day.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And the other thing is you got to look at the fees and all the things that come in. That doesn't mean they're always the cheapest.
Right.
So
all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah, all the things that could go wrong. So you want to have options because your trip is really important.
Okay, next one you say use points with airlines. That's pretty self-explanatory. We're all
It
pretty
is,
familiar with
but
points.
there's one thing we want to tell people is, so I'm a huge American Airlines person. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I am. We're in that. That's our big one in the city. There's ways to earn points that get you more and more options. There's a shopping portal on every airline. That means, hey, I'm going to go shop at a store online. I'm going to go to their portal first, and they're going to give me anywhere from 5 to 8 times the amount of points for whatever I purchase.
Yes.
And it's a great way to go and earn extra points. There's a dining option on those. So if you want to get those points to get your status up, but also earn some free tickets, make sure you know about that.
Okay, we got 1 minute left. You
Yep.
say set price alert on Google Flights.
It's super easy. Just look where you're going and you can set it down on the bottom. They're going to email you when it goes 5% higher or lower.
Okay, then travel during off or shoulder season. What do you
We've
mean by
talked about
that?
this before. That just means if people are traveling during the summer, always look at a kid's school calendar. You're going to go when kids are in school and parents are going to pull them out. That's going to be September and May. Those are going to be your off times. The airlines are going to go down in price because they know people aren't traveling.
Right. Okay, this is a big one. Air consolidator or travel agent. What is
We
a
just talked about this
consolidator?
when I walked in. So a consolidator is an actual company that goes out and they buy airline tickets in advance. They are a company and they buy them in advance. It's typically for premium seats, so a premium economy or business, but you can get anywhere from 15 to 20% off that flight. Now, I encourage you to make sure you know about that consolidator or work with a travel agent that works with them. We work with some great ones, and I just saved friends of mine $800 a ticket flying in premium economy going to Rome this summer.
But how would you find one on your own?
So you can Google it, and then
Okay.
you want to go look at the Better Business Bureau and
Got
make
it.
sure they're legit, because what can happen is they have fees. So you always want to know before you give someone a payment, what are those fees that are attached to everything?
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
And the last one, of course, follow fair deal sites. Susan, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you got it.
Good stuff. Okay. Time now to ask the expert here to answer your questions live on air about booking flights. Travel agent Susan Green. All right, our first one, Kathy from Surprise says, what's the outlook for summer trips both domestically and internationally?
Well, it all depends on where you're going. So if you avoid Europe right now, you're going to probably there are still deals to be had.
Okay.
Some is really difficult. We have to remind people daily. There's the Olympics, the Paralympics, the Tour de France. There's a lot of things going on. Domestically, there are still some deals. It's typically what it's always been every single year.
Okay, I'm thinking summer, we're about pretty much much a month out. Is
Yeah.
it still too late to book summer travel?
No, people can still book there. I mean, they got to
Yeah.
understand that when you wait, it's always a supply and demand thing. So if the hotels or the places that you want to go are full, the rates go up.
Got it.
So if we find places that either are not as appealing to maybe the massive crowd, like a San Diego place,
Yeah.
we're all going there, right? But if we're going to go pick a little bit off off the beaten path, it might be a little bit open.
Yeah.
But, or being flexible about the dates. Maybe you want to go on a Tuesday instead of going on a Saturday because, hey, your schedule is that way and you go for a couple less days.
Okay, play with that. All
Yeah.
right. Gail says, I keep hearing airlines are reducing the number of flights. Will that make them more expensive?
Well, this goes back to almost what I just said. So yes, that is part of the problem. We still are not back to the same amount, they call it lift, the same amount of lift that we had prior to COVID, and I don't think we're ever going to get back to that.
Yeah.
So what happens is supply and demand. Now, that's what they tell us. We have to make that decision. But you got to go with, okay, if there's not as many flights that are
Right.
flying right now to New York City, and they have less amount of bodies getting on there, they're going to ask more money for them. There's
Yeah.
usually about 20 to 25 different fares on every single airline out there.
Wow.
It's incredible to try to figure it out.
Yeah, no
So yeah, so they are becoming more and more expensive. I don't see that going down.
Okay. All right. Irene says, I heard about new airline rules that mandate refunds. How does that work? That's a good one.
Yeah, so that we are waiting for the official word to come out just because we've been asked this.
Yeah.
But what they're telling us right now is that when you are sitting at the airport and your flight gets canceled for longer than 3 hours and you're going to have to wait, you're going to get a refund. What amount of that refund? We haven't been told yet.
Okay.
But
But isn't it cash?
It's going to be cash.
Yes.
It's not going to be
credit
it's not a credit towards
okay.
another flight.
Yeah.
It's also baggage, which is another thing. So when baggage is lost,
Okay.
what is that going to be? It's not also going to be a credit for the airline. It's going to be cash. But we want to see what those hours are and stuff like that so that we can inform you guys. But we have to see it in writing. And so it came out from the government, and then now they have to implement it to the airlines. Airlines have to come back to us.
Okay, good to know. Bob from Phoenix says, what's the best way to get the best deal? Is it better to book through a third-party website or directly on the airline website? That's a good question, too.
It is a
I've
good
wondered
question.
that.
So I search a lot through these third parties, but I always book direct. And this is why. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you're just getting on a flight today and you know you're going, not a problem.
Okay.
But when you have an issue and you have to change something,
Yes.
now you got to work with a third party company. There's either fees or something else. You just don't know what's going on. When you're working directly with that airline,
Yeah.
they are much happier to, hey, I'm going to waive that, or hey, you got an issue, or you got to go on another airline. It becomes a much easier way to deal with things. It's always when you change.
Yeah, whether it's the airline or the hotel directly or
Correct.
what have you. So it sounds like a little bit more work, but at least you can resolve the problem easier.
It is. And that's what we always try to do is we work directly with those places too. And so we just tell people, but I do my research also.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, hey, what is the difference? And sometimes they won't tell you, hey, that's a basic economy airfare. That's why it's less. Or you're flying overnight and you didn't know you had 2 connections. Well, who wants to fly 2 connections?
Yeah, no kidding.
Not me. Maybe
right.
when you're 12.
Yeah, exactly. No, not at this age. Susan, you were wonderful.
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much for answering all those great questions.
You got it.
All right, in an historic shift, the Justice Department will move to loosen federal restrictions on marijuana. That's according to multiple sources who spoke with NBC News. Right now, marijuana is considered a Schedule I drug, meaning it has a high potential for abuse. Now, other drugs in that category include heroin and LSD. The Justice Department now wants to move it to the less severe Schedule III. This category includes drugs like Tylenol with codeine and some steroids. The move would open the door for pharmacies to distribute marijuana, as well as eliminate major tax burdens. Neither the Justice Department nor White House have confirmed the change. So let's dive into this very historic move by the DEA and really get a medical perspective on all of this. So I want to bring in Dr. Natasha Bouillon, the National Medical Director for One Medical. Natasha, we know, of course, any drug can be addictive, but what are your thoughts on marijuana being a less dangerous drug classification?
So reclassifying medical marijuana from Schedule I to a Schedule III controlled substance, it is supported by medical evidence. A Schedule I controlled substance has a high potential for addiction and no known medical benefits. But we know that medical marijuana does have benefits for people with glaucoma, HIV, chronic pain, even people with cancer, treating nausea. So there are medical benefits. The other point is medical marijuana has a really low potential for addiction, in contrast to medications or substances like heroin, which are currently Scheduled 1. Right. And then the other last point is that this actually opens up the door for more research on medical marijuana so we can truly understand the wide range of risks and benefits.
Okay, so bottom line, what is it that people need to know in light of this move?
Well, there's going to be an open comment period for the public, and there are still lots of unknowns. So we don't know exactly how this will be dispensed, how state medical boards will react, can any doctor prescribe this, or do they need specialized certification or training? Lots of questions to be answered. The other important point is there is a difference between medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, and recreational marijuana will still be subject to federal restrictions. And then the last important point I do want to make is that even though medical marijuana is safe under the supervision of a doctor, it is a substance, and so of course there are risks, there are side effects, and so if anyone has questions, they should reach out to their own doctor.
Okay, this will not be the end of this discussion. Natasha,
a lot more to come.
Thank you so very much. Probiotics versus prebiotics. You know, oftentimes people confuse the two, but what is clear is the strong demand worldwide. Probiotics are much more popular. In 2022, the global market reached a value of about $58 billion. Now, by the end of 2027, the market for probiotics is expected to reach more than $85 billion. That's according to Statista. But what exactly are probiotics and how are they different from prebiotics? How do you know if you need them and what are the risks? We're going to dive into all of it right now as we ask the expert. All right, Dr. Natasha Bouillon, start with the difference between pro versus the prebiotics.
Yes, so probiotics are live bacteria and yeast that can have beneficial effects on our body, especially on our gut. Our gut is really complex. It's made up of all kinds of microorganisms, and sometimes it gets out of balance depending on our health, what we're eating, and so probiotics can help restore that balance. It's different than prebiotics because prebiotics are actually the food that the bacteria eat to thrive.
Okay, all right. So when should you take them?
You know, it's interesting because so many people think that they should take a daily probiotic supplement just for their general health and wellness, but the research actually shows taking a probiotic for specific conditions is often more beneficial. So number one is when someone is taking antibiotics. And so if they're taking antibiotics, that can actually really destroy our gut and really take away all of the good bacteria in addition to the bad bacteria. This is why oftentimes when people are taking antibiotics, they might have loose stools. So always take a probiotic when you're taking any antibiotic. Another time is if somebody has a GI bug. You know, there's evidence that shows if someone takes a probiotic, anytime they get an upset stomach or a GI bug, it can actually shorten the duration of that illness by about 25 hours. We also see this in constipation in children. Giving children with constipation, a probiotic can help alleviate the constipation. But it's not all for gut health. Quite interesting is gum disease. So people who are prone to gum disease or prone to cavities, if they take a probiotic, even for a short amount of time, it can give their saliva some good bacteria that can help fight the formation of cavities in the future. And then the last big category is a condition called IBS. A lot of my patients have this. IBS is very common. For people who have IBS, even if they take a probiotic just for 8 weeks, it can reduce abdominal cramping, bloating, and gas for a longer amount of time.
Wow.
So lots of different benefits for really specific conditions.
Yeah, and of course, you always want to talk to your doctor about what would be best for you and if you need it.
Exactly.
So what are the risks?
You know, it's quite interesting because in some people who are immunocompromised, if they take a probiotic, there's been cases where they end up getting an actual infection, like a blood infection. And it's, you know, people who have cancer, if they're on chemotherapy, taking a long-term steroid. And the reason why is we think that their immune system isn't able to regulate that gut flora and that balance. And so when they take a probiotic, they might actually proliferate the bacteria and they might end up getting sick. And there's also, you know, instances of preterm infants, you know, other vulnerable populations, people with valvular heart disease. There's been reports of bacteria seeding on that heart valve. So I think those people should definitely talk to their doctors.
Yeah, that's frightening. Okay, so we know that there are food sources where you can get this. You don't always have to take the pill. So let's talk about the food sources.
Yeah, you know, that's such a great question because so many people think they can only get pro and prebiotics from supplements, but actually prebiotics are best through foods. And there's all kinds of foods that you can get prebiotics from, you know, asparagus, onions, peas, artichokes. So there's a wide range of foods that you should should eat in order to make sure that you're giving the good bacteria in your gut some good food.
Yeah.
Probiotics are a little different. So probiotics you can often get through fermented foods, like yogurt, sauerkraut, miso
Kimchi,
soup. Exactly.
love.
Those
Yeah.
are great sources of probiotics, but they're not in really high quantities. And so if you do have something like you're taking an antibiotic, yes, you can take a yogurt, but sometimes it's better to take that supplement as well.
Oh, all right. Good stuff. All right, Natasha, thank you so very much. Time now to ask the expert. Here to answer your questions live on the air is Dr. Natasha Bouillon. All right, our first one comes from Mike. He says, I feel like my stomach always hurts. Will pre or probiotics help?
Well, that's a good question, Mike. And before you take pre or probiotics, it is good to see your doctor about that, because if your stomach is always hurting, there are lots of reasons why, and it's better to have it checked out, understand what's going on, and maybe it is IBS, maybe it's not, but get a recommendation from a doctor. It's symptoms like those that we don't want to ignore.
Yeah, they're going to know you best.
Yes.
All right, Leslie from Phoenix says, what do all the different strains mean?
Oh, Leslie, that's such a great question because it can be overwhelming.
Yes.
And so the way I think about the strains is that probiotics have 3 different names. It's a genus, a species, and then a strain number. It's almost like a first, a middle, and a last name.
Okay.
And you need to know the right genus, species, and strain number when you're researching probiotics, because when you look at the research, people who got the right probiotics for the right conditions, they're the ones who thrived. So when you're looking for a probiotic, look for one that has a variety of strains in it. One of the ones I always recommend is Lactobacillus acidophilus. That's a probiotic strain that's great for gut health, but make sure it doesn't just have one strain, but a variety, and make sure that you're researching all 3 names and they match the one that you're looking for.
Okay, well, yeah, because sometimes I think I see over dozens of strains.
Yes,
right?
exactly, yes.
That's
And
good.
this is why it's good to know the genus, the species, and the strain name.
Oh my God, first, second, third. All right, Debbie in Gilbert says, if I want to take a prebiotic supplement, are the shelf-stable type good, or should it be the refrigerated type? I've always wondered shelf versus refrigerated.
Exactly, and this is a confusing one. So essentially, when we think about probiotics, they're effective when they're alive. And so probiotics, they continue to die once they're in a little package. The refrigerated ones are more stable because they're able to live a little bit longer. The shelf ones, though, they are good as long as you look at this thing called the CFUs, the colony forming units. And you need to look to see how many CFUs does your probiotic have, and you're not just looking at the manufacturer date, it's the expiration date. So, the date of manufacturing, it might be 10 billion CFUs, but then within a couple of months, now it's down to 1 billion. It's not enough. And so I would say read the package, read the expiration date, and look for CFUs that are 5 to 50 billion. I know that seems like a lot, but that's how much you need to start off with as the organisms die. I like the refrigerated type. That being said, it's because it just lasts longer, it's more alive, it's more expensive, so do your research. And of course, probiotics are not regulated by the FDA, so the most important thing is to do your research.
Okay, or ask your doctor.
Ask your doctor as well.
At the end of the day. All right. Donna says, can you talk about the benefits or disadvantages of kombucha?
This is a hot topic. So for a while there, all I heard about was kombucha, and then it kind of fell out of favor, and that's because there's risks and benefits. So kombucha, it's fermented tea. It does have probiotics in it, and so it is beneficial for some people. But like everything else in medicine, it needs to be in moderation. So people who are taking kombucha multiple times a day, they would notice that they're getting headaches, they're getting nauseated, they're actually getting an upset stomach, so it's doing the opposite of what we want it to do. If people use kombucha in moderation, though, it's great because it does have probiotics in it, but other risk of kombucha is people were fermenting these at home, and when that was happening, if they did it incorrectly, it would overgrow bacteria or it would grow mold.
Whoa.
And so you've got to be cautious, look at the sugar content as well. So there's pros and cons, but in moderation, it is a safe option for probiotics.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned the sugar thing, because some of them can be really
much,
high.
yes, yeah.
Fernando from Glendale says, should people with gastroparesis take pro or prebiotics?
Good question, Fernando. So for people who don't know, gastroparesis is a medical condition where essentially your stomach muscles, they're not squeezing really well, and so you're not digesting or moving food through your body well. We sometimes see this in people who have diabetes, but we can see it in other people as well. People come in, they say their stomach hurts, they have indigestion. Now, there's been research on pro and prebiotics for gastroparesis, and we haven't actually seen an improvement. I wish it did work, but the study is kind of inconclusive. But there are other treatments for gastroparesis, so certainly reach out to your doctor.
Okay, so don't waste your money on it yet.
On probiotics, yeah, it doesn't work.
Natasha, that was so good. Thank you so much. I know we have more viewer questions, so I know I'm going to cut you loose. You're going to go in the green room and answer more for
Happy to
you.
do so.
Well, most people are familiar with PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. But have you heard of PTG? That's known as post-traumatic growth. And it's what happens as an aftermath of trauma in a positive way. So let's dive deeper into this topic, what it means and why it is so important. On this Wellness Wednesday, joining me now is therapist Juliana Liddon. All right, first of all, explain, because a lot of people have never heard of this, myself included, until I heard a podcast about it.
Yeah.
But what is post-traumatic growth?
I actually love this because an example is when somebody comes into my office and they've gone through a trauma or a hardship and they basically are like, you know what, I just want to grow from this. I want to change. I want to open myself up and look at myself. So it's when you go through adversity, hardship, a trauma, and you come out of it really changed for the better.
Well, because it could work both ways, right? It could crush you or paralyze you. And for others, they can grow.
That's right.
So, I mean, why do some people grow while others can't?
No. Well, the first thing you have to have is this ability to want to do it, to want to change. And what is your support system like?
Yeah.
Right? So do you have a family or a loved one that's willing to encourage you to do it? Do you have a good coach, good counselor that's going to help you kind of make it through that? And really, it's these personality traits you have to look at. Are you the type of person that really wants to do the work?
Right.
Because some personalities, you know, it's hard. It's not
to
a fun thing to
motivate
do.
yourself.
Yes,
and have that
yes.
resilience, right?
Exactly.
That takes a lot.
It does. It does. And it's not easy to become transparent and look at the stuff.
You also say develop a new belief system. What do you mean by that?
So when you go through this and you come out the other side, often what happens is you see life so differently. You see it with a new lens. You are really open to so many new things. Because when we're just, you know, when we go through those trials, the beautiful thing is when we come through the other side, we really taste the sweetness of life.
Yes.
You know, you really do. If we just lived in this place that was rose-colored glasses, we wouldn't really know the beauty of all the good stuff, the little joys.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate it more. Like so many things in life, you know, people, when you've been through something, they always say, well, do you regret anything? And they always say no.
Always. And that's that new perspective, seeing it so differently, a new lens.
It's so true. So, and that, I think that goes back to my next question is, why must you go through that traumatic experience, right? So that life is sweeter on the other side.
That's right. And you know, we're wired as humans to be able to handle this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's when you take the opportunity, look, you don't always want to go through the trauma, but when you take the opportunity to learn from it, that's when everything shifts. And that really is, those lessons are learned, man, it just clicks.
Yeah, I love that. So walk us through, how do you achieve that positive growth?
Well, you find a good coach or counselor, right? That's going to help you really go through that. And when you do, you become more compassionate with yourself, right? You're able to look at life differently, have this self-awareness, and really be able to have compassion in a way that you didn't before. So you look at someone else with eyes of love. It's
in a
beautiful,
different light.
Yeah. I help a lot of people through betrayal trauma, couples that come in from infidelity, and they really, when they get to the other side, it's a new relationship. It is absolutely beautiful to witness.
They're wiser, they're more self-aware, they're stronger.
Or health crisis. Same kind of thing. I help a lot of, I mean, it's like, wow, it's that gift that kept on giving, even though it's hard to say.
Yeah, that's so important. All right,
is.
Juliana, thank you so very much. Well, it's time now to Ask the Expert. Here to answer your questions live on air is therapist Juliana Liddon, and we're talking about post-traumatic growth. So our first question comes from Erin. She says, I'm just getting over a bad relationship and breakup / divorce. How do I focus on me and what should I do?
Yeah, you really do need to focus on you. And the thing that's really important here when you're coming through a tough breakup like that, is working on yourself so then when you heal, you attract the right person the next time around. So there are so many classes you can take online, self-help books, so many things, relaxing, sleeping more, paying attention, getting a good counselor or coach to help you through it. But you want to heal. You want to heal.
It's a compilation of a lot of things.
It is.
Yeah. This viewer says, I had a rough childhood, absent parents, etc. And now as an adult, I'm struggling thinking everyone's going to abandon me, even though I know better. How can I get over this? Oh, that's tough.
I know, it is tough. And you know, those wounds, they permeate over time. And we talked about this on one of our segments with doing hypnotherapy is also a really good way to get into that trauma and start to really heal and make those connections. But there's a lot of, you know, even getting a good therapist that deals in this trauma is very, very important.
Yeah, and that's deep trauma from childhood.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we keep re-injuring ourselves along the way often with these wounds. So it's hard.
Darla says, are there good books to read, or is this something I need to talk with someone about?
Well, when we're talking of trauma, one comes to mind, I believe it's called Transforming Trauma. I cannot remember the author. But, you know, there are a lot of good ones out there. And I recommend just start doing that search. You know how it is? Sometimes you'll go into even a bookstore and the books will kind of,
There's so many
feel like they're
self-help
coming,
books.
that they're falling over for you, right? So just do it. Start searching.
And I think too, I mean, is it a multi-level approach too? I mean, not only just maybe books, but sometimes it just helps to talk to somebody.
It does.
Right?
It does. And to vent and to share and to be heard.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be listened to and supported.
Yeah, that's so important.
100%.
This viewer says, my husband cheated on me. I am not in a good place right now. How do I get past this?
Yes, well, we talked about this on a segment.
Because you deal with a lot with infidelity.
Yes, yes. And really, when you're doing this, I say to people, go to someone that has the experience with trauma so that they can really help you heal this infidelity and work through it. Because sometimes they're working at a whole nother level or different landscape and they can't get in and really understand how this hurt continues to just, these triggers just come and come and come.
Because there's trust issues. I mean, there's so many that
There are a
follow.
lot, but you can heal.
Right.
That's the good news, is you can get through this and you can get to the other side.
Right, and be stronger.
I see it. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Juliana, thank you so much. I know we have more questions, so I'm going to let you go to the green room.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you so much. Thanks for watching. Be sure to follow our YouTube channel for more content and watch the Ask the Expert segment weekdays at 4 p.m. and right here on our 12 Plus app.